I love the Uncharted franchise. It is a franchise that started with a fun cinematic adventure where the story didn't really take itself that seriously, and the only main goal was just to make the audience have a fun experience, and the franchise actually ended in a more personal story that truly showcased how far Naughty Dog as a studio has come with their storytelling via video games. The evolution of Naughty Dog with the Uncharted and The Last of Us games has put them on the map as one of, if not the best studio out there alongside Rockstar. And even though they have been in the middle of controversy with their latest game, The Last of Us Part 2, they are still the top dogs in the gaming industry, and it wouldn't surprise me if they stayed up there for many more years to come. Now, Naughty Dog wasn't always viewed as this amazing and outstanding development team back in the day, to the point where people expected industry-changing games. Sure, they made great games in the past like the Jak and Daxter franchise, but the expectations weren't how they are today. Nowadays, the games that Naughty Dog produces are usually always considered for Game of the Year, or are those type of games that are very tough to beat, and other studios actually struggle to go and actually match the same quality that Naughty Dog puts in their games. And honestly, I think that the reason why Naughty Dog is in this point in which they're so respected as one of the top studios in the gaming industry is because they released one game that completely changed the gaming industry forever, and it was the beginning of Naughty Dog's rise to the top. And that game is none other than the timeless masterpiece called Uncharted 2: Among Thieves. Uncharted 2 is the video game that set the bar so high back in 2009 that people who purchased games after Uncharted 2 released expected nothing less than superb graphics, voice acting, gameplay, and music in their games. Anything short of that was considered low quality compared to Uncharted 2 and a huge disappointment. This is the only video game that made me desperate to buy a console just so I can play the hell out of this game. It is also the video game that made me fall deeply in love with cinematic story-based games, and it's probably the reason why I even have this YouTube channel in the first place. There was nothing like Uncharted 2 back in the day. It truly blew me and many other people away because we never saw this much attention to detail, graphical fidelity, top-tier music, and voice acting in a video game ever before. It literally felt like playing an actual movie, and there was nothing that could compare with that amazing experience people had with Uncharted 2. I still remember the days when I was at school fantasizing of just going home just to play Uncharted 2 over and over and over again until I could play it no more. And although many kids grew up with Halo or Call of Duty and would fantasize about playing those games all day, for me, it was story-based games that stole my heart, especially Uncharted 2. I remember having one of those old school squarish TVs and playing this game in probably 360 or 480p and still being blown away by how amazing this game looked and felt in hand while I played it. I also remember that I played this game about 5 times before my dad one day came back home with a full HD TV, and the moment he hooked up my PlayStation 3 to that TV and booted up Uncharted 2 in full HD, I remember my 11-year-old self completely losing it and freaking out because of how good everything looked. When I saw how crisp, how clear, how detailed everything looked, I honestly felt like I was on cloud 9, and I remember my dad looking at me and just smiling at me because I was just super happy. I will never forget how I felt playing this game as a kid, and replaying Uncharted 2 once again for this video truly brought me back to those legendary days. Those days were, for me, the golden days of gaming, the days where I would play games non-stop. And it all started with Uncharted 2. And even if those golden days of gaming are long gone, going back and replaying Uncharted 2 and seeing how this game still looks and actually still plays very well kind of just showcases the brilliance of Naughty Dog as a studio and how they develop and design their games. This game for sure falls into the category of being a timeless masterpiece. No matter how many times I relive Nathan Drake's adventure searching for missing cities like Shambhala and missing treasure, no matter how many times I relive Nathan Drake getting betrayed by a typical Englishman, Nathan Drake getting super spicy with Chloe, Lazarevich being a nasty and cruel leader to his own men, Nathan and Sully jumping off a huge ass cliff onto the ocean, Nathan reuniting unexpectedly with his past love interest Elena, creating a little love triangle between Nathan Nathan, Chloe, and Elena. Nathan jumping onto a moving train to rescue Chloe, and probably one of the most breathtaking action pieces you'll probably ever see in a video game. Nathan fighting giant monsters that turn out to be guardians of Shambhala. Nathan's epic final showdown with Lazarevich, which in my opinion is the best showdown in the Uncharted franchise. And Nathan and Elena sharing a beautiful kiss after surviving the events that took place in Shambhala. No matter how many times I experience all of this, I can never get enough of it. Top it off with an amazing soundtrack, great acting, graphics that, yes, they look a little bit dated, but they still look good, and competent gameplay, at least if we compare it to today's standards. I can safely say, in my opinion at least, this Uncharted game is the most memorable Uncharted game ever. And look, I have to admit that Uncharted 4 is a better game in almost every single department compared to Uncharted 2, but honestly, Uncharted 2 is still and will always be my favorite Uncharted game ever made. Just because this game means so much to me, and because this game basically was with me when I was growing up and I was passing through difficult times. It easily sits in my top 5 favorite games of all time. Thanks to Uncharted 2, I fell in love with gaming completely. I started to experience many other games that truly inspired me, and like I said before, helped me during difficult times, me growing up in a very toxic environment in my family and also in school. Before I became obsessed with video games, I used to just be a movie lover. Me and my father would go to the theaters once a month every Friday to watch all the movies we could possibly watch that came out that month. I played video games as a kid, but they never felt as immersive as watching a good film for me. But games like Uncharted 2 taught me that I can actually experience a whole different level of immersion no film, series, or book will ever provide me with. And ever since Uncharted 2, I've had the privilege to experience games like The Last of Us 1, The Last of Us 2, Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2, Uncharted 4, BioShock, God of War, Detroit Become Human, the first 2 Batman Arkham games, games that just touched my heart in various ways and I'll never forget. I appreciate that Naughty Dog went in the route that they went with their Uncharted games. Yes, I know many gamers dislike cinematic story-based games because the majority only care about the gameplay, and these games are kind of cutscene heavy. But I guess for me, as a movie lover, as somebody that enjoys sitting down and watching a good story, this is what I love the most about story-based games. They bring the element of cinema to video games and create a level of immersion by mixing it with gameplay to levels films will never top. When you watch mediocre films, you feel bored and it feels like a waste of time in most cases. But in a video game, even if the story could be mediocre, there is still a chance you may enjoy the overall experience because of that extra layer of immersion by interacting with the world you're in. And if the story is pretty good, or at least very fun, there's honestly nothing like that in my opinion. Uncharted 2 was the beginning of games adapting a more cinematic feel to their stories via games, and I personally couldn't be happier. I am grateful to have this game when I was so young, and even 12 years later, it still sits in my heart as one of the best games ever made, and one of the games that changed the way games are made forever, something that I honestly really appreciate. Thank you, Naughty Dog, for delivering one of the best experiences I've ever had as a kid, and thank you for pouring your heart and soul into every single project you participate in. Tell me in the comment section down below, what does Uncharted 2 mean to you? And let's celebrate 12 years of this amazing masterpiece, of this timeless game that will never get old, and honestly, one of the best games ever made. Remember to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because next week I will be talking about Rockstar's Bully to celebrate its 15-year anniversary on October 17th. Also, consider leaving a like on this video, because every time you guys leave a like on the video, it promotes it to other people, and it's free to do so, and it helps the channel out a lot. Endure and survive, my friends, and I'll see you guys next week with another video.